One afternoon, I was examining an elderly patient when he told me about a strange sensation in his neck. No pain. No soreness. No numbness. Just a warm, slightly heavy feeling at the back of his neck every time he turned his head from side to side. At that moment, I didn't think too much about it. In my mind, it seemed like the usual neck stiffness that many seniors often experience. But then, when I looked into his eyes, I sensed something wasn't right. It was as if his body was trying to signal that something more serious was going on. And suddenly, I remembered another case I had seen. A man around the same age, with the exact same symptoms. Just a few days later, he suffered a cerebellar stroke. No obvious warning signs. No intense pain. Just small signals that had been overlooked. That moment led me to review every document, every clinical case I had related to neck sensations in older adults. And I realized something important: a stroke doesn't always arrive like a bolt of lightning. Sometimes, it whispers. And that whisper might start in the neck. I know this may sound simple. But it's exactly that simplicity that causes so many people to miss the chance for early detection. If someone comes to mind right now, a loved one, an elderly friend, or even yourself, please don't keep this information to yourself. Share this video with them. Just 1 minute of listening could mean a lifetime of better health. Because the story I'm about to share about that very patient will show you exactly what happened. All because of a mild warmth in the back of the neck. I still clearly remember Mr. Harold, 72 years old, living in a small town in Ohio. He was a quiet, gentle man who had been married to his wife for over 40 years. His life revolved around morning walks, stopping by his favorite coffee shop, and spending his afternoons watering the vegetable beds behind the house. One day, while on his usual walk, he began to feel waves of heat in the back of his neck. It wasn't like a fever, and it wasn't painful, just a dull warmth, slightly heavy, like someone had gently placed a hand on his neck and was holding it there. Thinking it was just a bad sleeping position or perhaps age-related, he went home, laid down, and forgot about it. The next morning, he got up early again to go walking. But this time, he staggered slightly as he stepped off the porch. For 3 days in a row, every time he bent down to water the plants, he felt a brief moment of dizziness. And whenever he turned his head quickly, his vision blurred for a second. His wife noticed. She gently suggested he see a doctor. But he smiled and said, "I'm old now, it's not strange to have a stiff neck or get a little dizzy. Let's just rest a few days and it'll go away." Then came the afternoon of the 4th day. While standing up from a garden chair, he completely lost his balance. His right hand began to tremble, and his speech slowed. His wife panicked and called for emergency help. When I saw him again in the neurology unit, he had passed the critical stage, but the damage to his cerebellum had made balance a serious challenge. He needed a cane to walk, and his short-term memory had begun to fade. He often forgot the names of objects, or whether he had already eaten breakfast. His wife sat beside the hospital bed, holding his hand, eyes red. She quietly said to me, if I had insisted that day and taken him to see a doctor, maybe things would have turned out differently. That sentence has stayed with me ever since. Because it isn't just one person's story. It's something I've heard far too many times in my life as a doctor. I wish I had paid attention earlier. After Harold's story, I began to look more closely at an often overlooked area, the neck. People don't usually associate it with strokes, but in reality, especially for older adults, the neck isn't just where the body holds weight, it's also where blood flows up to nourish the brain. Right behind the neck, near both sides of the cervical spine, are two extremely important arteries, what we call the vertebral arteries. They run up through the neck vertebrae and meet inside the skull to supply blood to the cerebellum, a special part of the brain responsible for balance, coordination, and spatial awareness. Unlike other regions of the brain, the cerebellum doesn't show obvious symptoms when it experiences mild blood shortages. It doesn't cause immediate paralysis. It doesn't make you lose your speech in a second. But it whispers. In subtle, blurry ways. A light warmth at the back of the neck. A brief dizziness when you turn your head. A second or two of blurry vision when bending down to water the plants. Or a slight misstep when walking down a single stair. All of these may be signs that blood flow through the vertebral arteries is slowing. And when blood doesn't reach the cerebellum adequately, bit by bit, the brain begins to send quiet signals like a small warning light blinking softly on a car dashboard. We call these the earliest signs of a silent stroke. Unlike a classic stroke, a silent stroke doesn't strike with dramatic force. It's more like a tiny crack in your home's wall, not enough to bring it down today, but if left unchecked, the entire structure may collapse. Seniors are especially prone to overlook these signs. Partly because aging dulls the body's ability to sense discomfort and change. Partly because of the habit of enduring quietly, not complaining, not wanting to bother their children. And partly because no one expects a little warmth in the neck to be linked to the brain. But in medicine, we've learned one truth: the body always whispers before it screams. And if we learn to listen early enough, we can prevent the scream from ever coming. And I believe, the very first whisper you might feel begins in the neck. Because the neck is often the brain's first place to whisper a warning, we need to learn how to recognize those subtle signals. They aren't loud. They aren't always obvious. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice your body speaking to you, little by little. I want to share with you 5 small but important signs that often appear in the neck when the brain is experiencing mild blood shortage, especially in people aged 60 and older. First is a mild warmth or heat sensation at the back of the neck, even when you don't have a fever and the weather isn't hot. It's not burning. It's not painful. But it feels like a slow, deep heat in the back of the neck. Many of my patients describe it as if a small warm compress were placed right at the base of their neck. Second is a sense of heaviness or slight tingling in the neck when turning your head. It's not painful to move your neck, but every time you turn to the left or right, you may feel a gentle tug or weight at the base of your skull. Some people describe it as if something is pressing down on their neck with each turn. Third, which is easy to miss, is a moment of blurry vision when you suddenly move your head. It's like your eyesight flickers for a second or two, then returns to normal. If this happens more than once a week, especially in the morning or when standing up, you should take note. Fourth is slight imbalance or brief dizziness. Not enough to cause a fall. Not so bad that you have to grab a wall. But more like the wobbly feeling you get stepping off a boat. It may happen when you bend over, turn your head, or simply stand up after sitting for a long time. Fifth is a light headache in the back of the neck. Not long-lasting, not severe, but recurring for several days in a row. Some people think it's just age-related neck or shoulder pain, but in reality, it might be linked to reduced blood flow to the cerebellum. Let me emphasize this: you don't need to have all 5 signs. Just one of them, if it keeps coming back, is reason enough to pay attention. Because these symptoms can mimic common muscle or joint issues, but for older adults, especially those with high blood pressure, cholesterol, or diabetes, nothing should be called normal until it's clearly ruled out. I know we often think neck pain, stiffness, or dizziness are just part of aging. But I always tell my patients one thing: aging doesn't mean pain, and it definitely doesn't mean ignoring what your body is telling you. If you felt any of these signs, or if someone close to you has recently complained about their neck, please take a moment to write it down, remember it, or share this with them. Because sometimes, listening just a little earlier is all it takes to prevent something much bigger later on. I know that many people, after hearing about these signs, start to feel unsure or even anxious. The first question they often ask is, "So what can I do before seeing a doctor?" My answer is always clear: you don't need to worry, but you do need to pay attention. And sometimes, one small daily action is enough to bring you peace of mind. I'd like to share with you a few very simple ways to check yourself at home. No medical equipment is needed, but they allow you to monitor your own body in a proactive, gentle way. First method, I call it the neck and mirror exercise. Each morning, after washing your face, stand in front of a mirror. Stand upright, relax your shoulders, then slowly turn your head to the left, hold for 3 seconds, and turn to the right, hold for 3 seconds. Do it slowly. No rush. As you turn your head, pay attention. Do you feel a slight tightness, heaviness, or subtle warmth in the back of your neck? Is there any brief dizziness or momentary blurry vision? If yes, don't panic. Just write it down. We'll keep an eye on it over time. Second method, feel your neck pulse with your fingers. While sitting still, use your fingertips and gently place them on both sides of your neck, just below the jawbone, place where you might feel your pulse. You don't need to count. Just feel. Is your pulse regular? Does it speed up or slow down suddenly? Are there any skipped or irregular beats? If you notice something unusual, don't press harder and don't try to diagnose yourself. The goal here isn't to figure out the condition, but simply to notice anything abnormal that you can later report to your doctor. Third method, keep a short neck journal for 3 days in a row. All you need is a piece of paper and a pen. Each morning, jot down: does your neck feel different than it did yesterday? When turning your head, is there anything that makes you stop or hesitate? Did you notice any new sensation? Writing it down helps you remember. And it helps your doctor understand your situation better if you go in for a visit. Fourth method, pay attention to your sleeping posture. Many seniors have the habit of using pillows that are too high, or sleeping on one side for too long. That can compress the blood vessels that supply the brain, especially the vertebral arteries. Your pillow should be just the right height, soft but not too deep, so your neck and spine stay aligned in a straight line. And if you've noticed more neck soreness in the morning, it might be time to reevaluate how you sleep. And finally, let me repeat something important. If your neck feels unusual, do not massage it aggressively, press acupressure points, or take muscle relaxants without guidance. Because if the cause is narrowed blood vessels, strong pressure can make things worse. In my years caring for patients, I've seen many cases of mild neck soreness turn into something more serious simply because people kept massaging, tapping, or applying heat patches again and again. The best action, in any uncertain situation, is always to observe, record, and seek proper medical evaluation. Everything I'm sharing here isn't to make you afraid every time your neck feels stiff. It's so that you gain sharper awareness of your own body. And if you practice these small habits daily, even just for a few minutes, I truly believe you'll feel more at ease. Because in doing so, you're not only protecting your neck, you're protecting your brain. Let me share 2 stories with you. 2 different journeys. 2 older adults, both living in quiet suburban neighborhoods, both able to walk on their own, both believing they were still healthy. They each felt something unusual in their necks. But from there, their paths split in 2. The first patient, Mr. Donald, age 69. He felt a mild warmth in the back of his neck whenever he sat for long periods. Then, a few times when turning his head, he felt slightly dizzy. Once, when standing up, he lost his balance for a moment and had to sit back down. But he brushed it off. He didn't write anything down. He didn't tell anyone. He simply thought, probably just cervical degeneration. I'm getting old, after all. Then one morning, as he was getting ready for his usual walk, he collapsed right at his front door. He didn't lose consciousness, but he couldn't get up. His right hand grew weak. His left eye began to blur. His speech became slurred. The stroke came quietly, no pain, no shouting, just a blockage in the cerebellum caused by long-term narrowing of the neck artery. After that, he permanently lost his sense of balance. He now uses a wheelchair. No more morning walks. And he needs assistance every day. When I asked if he had noticed any signs before, he looked down and answered slowly, just a few times when my neck felt warm and my vision blurred a bit. I thought I was just getting older. The second patient, Mrs. Eleanor, age 74. She was meticulous, always noting small changes in her body. One week, she began feeling an unusual warmth in her neck while bending down to water the garden. No pain, just warmth, paired with a brief dizzy spell when she turned her body. She found it odd. And instead of ignoring it, she wrote it down in her health journal. 2 days later, when the symptoms repeated, she decided to visit a clinic. We performed a Doppler ultrasound on her neck arteries, and to our surprise she had a 70% narrowing in one vertebral artery. She was immediately started on blood thinners and monitored closely. A few weeks later, the neck sensation disappeared. And she still walks every morning, still cooks for her husband, still tends her garden as if nothing had ever happened. When I called to check in, she laughed and said, "I don't know if I avoided a stroke. But I do know this, if I hadn't gone to the doctor that day, I wouldn't feel as peaceful as I do now." I'm not sharing these stories to compare who did right or wrong. I'm sharing them so we can ask ourselves one simple question: if one day, something feels different in your neck, what will you choose to do? And if someone in your life has ever complained about their neck, felt dizzy when turning their head, or seemed slightly off balance when standing up, would you send them this video so they might get another chance? Because sometimes, 1 minute of listening can lead to a lifetime of living differently. After hearing those two very different stories, you may be asking yourself, so what should I do if I start feeling something unusual in my neck? This is the time for a plan. Not a complicated one. Not a long checklist. Just 3 simple steps. 3 steps to keep you in control. 3 steps to help you feel more at ease, every single day. Step 1, listen regularly and write it down. If you feel warmth, heaviness, mild dizziness when turning your head, or brief blurred vision, don't immediately assume it's normal. You don't need to worry right away. But you do need to take note. Use a small notebook, or jot it down on your phone, the time, the sensation, the exact moment it happened. Keep track for 3 days in a row. Just a few lines a day is enough. Why is this record so important? Because when you visit a doctor, we don't just need to know that something happened, we need to know when, how often, and whether it's recurring. A clear record helps us identify the pattern faster and helps you feel like you're actively managing your health. Step 2, go to the right place, see the right specialist. If, after a few days, the neck symptoms keep coming back even if they're mild, you should see a doctor. There's no need to rush to the ER unless it's an emergency. But you should visit a place that can check the blood vessels in your neck and the back part of your brain. Ideally, you should see a neurologist or a geriatric specialist. And when you get there, you can ask about specific tests such as Doppler ultrasound of the vertebral arteries, MRI scan of the cerebellum, EEG. If you've been feeling dizzy or disoriented, if you don't know how to begin, you can simply say, "I've been feeling something unusual in my neck for several days, and I'd like to check if there's any issue with blood flow." That one simple sentence could open a big door toward protecting your health. Step 3, avoid actions that might make things worse. Many people, when they feel neck stiffness, start massaging it, pressing on acupressure points, applying heating patches, or taking over-the-counter muscle relaxants. For the neck especially and seniors, this is something I want to stress: do not apply strong pressure until you know the real cause. Because if the root issue is a narrowed artery, aggressive massage can damage soft tissues around it or worse, cause small internal bleeding, blockages, or even send plaque fragments to the brain. Instead, the safest thing to do is rest, keep your neck gently warm, adjust your sleeping position, and wait for a proper medical assessment before trying anything else. There's something I've seen time and time again throughout my years of work. People tend to listen to others more easily than they listen to themselves. They'll take their friends and loved ones to the doctor right away, but delay when their own body starts speaking. I've met more patients than I can count who said to me through tears, "I wish I had paid attention earlier. I wish they hadn't ignored that gentle sensation at the back of their neck. I wish they hadn't thought, it's probably just age." I don't want you to be the next person who has to say that. Because your body, it never stays completely silent. It always whispers before it screams. It sends signals no matter how small a lightheaded moment, a brief blur of vision, a subtle warmth in your neck just to make you pause and ask, what's happening here? The neck, something we often consider so simple, can actually be the very first place where the brain cries for help. And if you're gentle enough with yourself, patient enough to truly listen, you won't have to go through the same regret that too many others already have. I didn't create this video to scare you. I made it to remind you that you deserve to live healthy, whole, and at peace with your loved ones. Not just to live long, but to live clearly, with control, with choices still in your hands. And if right now you're feeling something you can't quite explain in your neck, a dull sensation that doesn't yet have a name, leave it in the comments below. Because who knows, your small story might be exactly what someone else needed to hear in time. And if you feel this video might help someone you care about, please send it to them. You never know. You might be the one who helps them avoid something they never saw coming. Finally, if you'd like me to walk alongside you each week sharing gentle insights on brain health, memory, and early signs to watch for, click that subscribe button. I'll always be here to remind you that no matter your age, your body deserves to be heard and cared for with kindness.